Okay, so hello everyone. I feel very, very fortunate to work in the Community Recycling Unit in EPA New South Wales, and very, very lucky that we've had the opportunity to build a whole new community recycling centres scheme through New South Wales. So I'm just going to talk about the technology side of that. So part of the really good thing is having such great partnerships with all our councils, but I'm just going to focus on the technology side as we built this amazing, I think it's an amazing system that really, really helps us roll out this scheme across the state. So I'm just going to talk a bit about what is drop-off, key learnings from building drop-off and how we developed it and the stakeholder benefits that we have and how we manage compliance through drop-off as well, which is really important for us, and how we're preparing for the future. So when we started the whole CRC rollout, we were investigating what options are there to actually manage having so many community recycling centres across the state, because right now we've got about 87. They're officially launched, and what we're looking to do is build about 109 through the state. So that's quite a logistics exercise to make sure that each one of these sites, we know what's going on at that site, and we're quite confident that any capacity they have is being used effectively and efficiently for us, and also making sure the waste contractor, tox-free, they're aware of what's going on and they're creating their schedules effectively and really efficiently for us to use. So the system, councils report into the system, tox-free views what is going on the system as per the reports from each of the CRCs that are launched across the state. They then create a schedule for collection going through that state about for the next fortnight or so. And stakeholders include local councils for CRCs. They report directly into it every Monday morning, and they also declare when a collection truck has come and say what has been collected by that collection truck. So that's an independent verification for us. So other stakeholders, of course, tox-free, who currently have the contract for both the community recycling centres and the household chemical clean-out schemes. And regional coordinators can access the data that's going on at their particular community recycling centres in their group, and of course EPA. So there are, as the administrator, we have full access to all the data, can make sure everyone accesses their own data, but commercial in confidence information is quite critical on this website as well. So one of the really important things is developing relationships with all the councils and making sure that it's really easy to use. We certainly don't want to build a system where people are going, are you serious? EPA is asking us to report on this granular level of detail. I don't have the time to do it, because there's such a huge workload at local councils. So to give you an example of a community recycling centre, here's Hornsby. So fantastic, we've got consistent branding across the state. So it's a really unique, identifiable site that people can go past, they see the sign and go, yes, that's a CRC. I know the colours, I know the branding, I know the font, I know what I'm going into. So once they drive into the site, this is really generated about education of the residents. So they drive into the site, they get the things out of their actual boot and they put it into the receptacles. So that's a really critical thing. After they've turned up for the first time, they'll know what to do, they know what to bring the next time. So another site here is Wingecarribee, which is a very, very well-run site. We love all our partners. Wingecarribee does particularly well, and their signage and their setup is just fantastic, very, very easy to use. So we're very, very fortunate to have such a range of good partners. Now here are all the community recycling centre locations. So keep in mind, it wasn't too long ago, there was nothing on this map, nothing. So in the space of a few years, we've been fortunate enough to develop a fantastic network for residents across the state, which is a fantastic thing for us and all the residents who use this service, because it is targeted at residents. It's not for commercial, it's all for residents. Now we've just got a few in progress, so we're looking to open up these last few over the next year or two. So by about the end of calendar year 2019, they should all be open. So the results that we've had from the system, I might be biased, but I think we do have really good relationships with the councils using the system. The acceptance has been really good. Yes, they do have to use the system, but I try and get as much critical feedback as I can. And usually I say, what's wrong with the system? I don't say, what do you like about the system? I say, what's wrong with the system? How can I make it better for you? Because that allows them to say, oh, I don't like this, Zach. Maybe you could change this. So we've had quite a few tonnes come through the system, all tracked through drop-off, which is really positive. So it's been in operation since about 2014-15, and it started off with the community recycling centres, and then it moved into the household chemical cleanout program as well. So all these, instead of having a paper-based system, this is all digital. It makes it much, much easier to create a really good data set. There's no manual entry of data into the system. It's really all generated. Tox-free can go and enter those mass balances that they're getting from each of the collections, which is fantastic. And it's really, really quick. And it's a website, it's not an app. So from my experiences, building an app for our purposes was not appropriate. It would have had an extra layer of development, which would have been significant in cost, and having a website allowed us to say, something's wrong with it, let's fix it, work with the developers and push it out today. Push it out within an hour. My experience is that we couldn't do that with an app. So it's certainly been a positive for us, so the apps work well. Now, I really want to focus that it's not just a reporting system. We in the community recycling unit see it as a platform for creating future product stewardship. We really want to work and provide this data and discuss this data with organisations to create product stewardship schemes, because we think there's a massive potential for all this data that we have coming through across the state. So it is easy to use. What we have, it's more based around the receptacle capacities. So we're not asking a CRC staff member on site to say, I think I've got 16 kilos of paint. Like, absolutely not. What we're asking them to say is this particular receptacle type, the green one we call a B12, and what we're asking them to say is, do you declare it's 100% full or 75% full all above? And that will automatically go across when they use the slider. They just move that blue dot across there, and then they can declare in about 5 minutes on a Monday morning what the capacities remaining are at that CRC. So we really have tried to make it as simple as possible. This is just one of two screens. The next screen is for the bycatch materials, which is chemical materials, which are not targeted to be received at CRCs. Next up, after they've done that declaration, tox-free is scheduled the truck comes along, the CRC then makes an independent verification. This is one of just a few screens, so you can see the numbers down the bottom there, but this is the compliance side where they say, yes, we're doing the responsible thing of now giving these goods to tox-free. We're saying this is the transport certificate number, and that forms a backbone of how we use the system. Scheduling, so we've got 87 at the moment, but there's about 90, 92 currently reporting, so yet to be launched. What this screen is saying is this is the latest declaration from each site across the state. So we can very quickly go across line by line and say, for the inner west, the top line, they're saying that's how many are full, and the lower side, that's how many spare they have for each particular receptacle type. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that's the chemical cabinets. We ask them to report on that by quarters. So we're not asking them to say, I've got 6 cans in this particular cabinet. We're asking them to say, I think it's about a quarter full or 50% full. So that allows tox-free to really load up their trucks and make sure we're servicing them effectively. Invoicing. So we did a projection about invoicing about each of the trucks going out to the CRCs, and we quickly realised it could be about 300 invoices a month. That's impossible. There's no way we could manage that administration whatsoever. So what we did is we built some screens to make sure we could take it down as low as possible. We rolled up these invoices for each particular cost structure. Now we have 5 invoices a month. So that makes it much easier for us to manage this system. On those 5 invoices, they are rolled up, but within that we do have lots of detail, and we can drill down into everything to see every kilo from every truck, every collection going around the state, and that includes both a truck just going from St Mary's out to Byron Bay, or it could be the sites en route as well. So we track those quite effectively and efficiently, and part of that is saying how many receptacles for this example of water paint were collected, what's the upper limit that could possibly be charged by tox-free. So we've just got quick little auditing insights like that. I did not spend too much money building a really complicated reporting system. This is just one example of it. Basically we have triggers where we can say, just give us a simple, quick exported report, because what we want to move from, instead of building a fancy dashboard within our custom built website that we've spent a lot of time building, we really want to move into business intelligence. So Power BI is a supported tool that we have in our organisation. So what we're doing now is moving our website into what Department of Planning is calling a data lake. So we're moving all the data sources into one common area. Then we can access them securely, build Power BI dashboards, which I can then modify however I would like to. And then we can just start saying, okay, refresh the data or give me live data, rather than me manipulating Excel files, exporting them, and doing analysis on that. So some of the key things we got out of it is there was no off-the-shelf solution available, so we consulted quite heavily with our partners. We said, look, here's what we think will work. We built a test version of that. We went out into the councils and said, we think this might suit what we're doing. We think it should work pretty well. What's wrong with it? Not, just give us a bit of critical feedback. What's wrong with it? How can we make it better? How can we make your life easier? And we had to make sure what was happening and what was being reported reflected the reality. So what were the invoices coming into us and how can we analyse that? And we had to make sure it was reliable. So this is not Silicon Valley. We're not moving fast and breaking things. I'm not interested in providing support for something that is breaking every day. I have no interest whatsoever of doing that. I want to build something that is almost 100% reliable. And at the start, in the first few months, yeah, I received a few calls, but I receive hardly any phone calls now. It is a very simple system. There's almost no support that I have to provide. Very, very reliable, very, very easy for councils. And if I want to make a change that's going to affect the end users, I have to make damn sure that it's very obvious why we're doing that and what the change is. And I make barely any changes. So there are changes to what the program has to accommodate, and I have to make sure that it's such a minor change, it really is barely any change for the end user, just to make it easy for them. So we do have a step-by-step manual to make things easy. We are very consistent. So I am the project officer that created this from the start. We haven't had staff turnover, and part of the reason for that is I think we're very fortunate to work in such a good team, working on such a good project, and I absolutely love doing this. I love doing the technology side, and it makes our lives much, much easier. So that consistency in delivery of messages has made a big impact, I think, for our councils. Councils have huge workloads. We've wanted to make this as easy as possible for them. Now, being a data shepherd, so this is the part where I've got a few years of data, and then we started doing Power BI reports and saying, oh, that data, some of that looks a bit dodgy. Some of it looks a bit funny. How do we change some of that data? So some of the time I'll have to spend is really going into that data and saying, how can I modify that? And then how can I design those mistakes out of the system? So to give an example, our developer, we've now got about 720 tickets. So feature requests, bugs, changes, things like that. So fortunately, I no longer wake up thinking in the morning, oh, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. But we are getting to quite a mature stage of drop-off. Huge reduction in the amount of invoices that we are required to process. We really have a strong understanding of what's going on at each of the CRCs. So it could be a CRC receiving 3 trucks a week, or it could be a CRC receiving 1 truck every 8 months. But we have a really good understanding that those sites are being actively managed and maintained by those council staff. The waste contractor has a huge stakeholder benefit. They can go in, quickly see what's going on. They can create schedules, and then once they enter that into the drop-off system, emails are automatically sent to the relevant staff at that council. They also get SMS notifications to know that a truck is on its way. It's going to be coming in 4 days, for example. It's very simplified for tax-free. They don't have to spend a lot of admin time entering all this information and then presenting invoices to us. They don't have to contact councils all the time and say, what's going on at your site? They have a good idea of what's going on at the site through this dropoffwaste.com. And councils have control of their data. They don't have to come to me and say, oh, Zach, I've got an annual report that I have to complete and it's due tomorrow. Can I have my data? And then I'm out of office and can't respond or something like that. They can access it at any time. Every single truck that's gone to their CRC, every single kilo that has come through their CRC. So it's a big benefit of doing that. All the ROCs, Regional Organisation of Councils, they can see what's going on at all their sites. The auditor that we have, the external auditor, he has full access to everything in the system. As an admin user, he can walk to a site and say, I can see that sometimes you're not reporting on Monday morning. what's going on. Is it a different sort of pattern of site operations? He can see that volumes might be out. That allows us, getting all this data and all this kilogram data, allows us to identify outliers. And then we can approach a CRC and say, oh, look, you're receiving a hell of a lot of arsenic. What's going on? So sort of start those questions. By doing this, it really allows councils to feel confident in what they're doing by having this website. The waste contractor can easily enter and check the transport certificate information, so they can self-correct before they come to us and say, here's the invoice for this particular month for this material set. Regulatory teams can access this data at any time. And preparing for the future, what we're looking to do is once we have a data lake, we'll be able to say instant data matching. So if trucks are going out and they're collecting materials from the CRCs, have those trucks been declared through the regulatory side of the EPA? It can be instant matching. And what we can do is identify outliers within certain data sets and set up dashboards for that. All data sets now have geospatial information. So part of the future will be potentially integrating minute-by-minute truck movements throughout the state from our waste contractor and knowing exactly what's going on and how we can optimise those costs. Power BI is a huge thing that I'm really going to enjoy sinking my teeth into to make sure that we're managing the contract really effectively and getting best bang for buck in what we're doing. Also, in the current contract and future contracts, Power BI will play quite a big influence in this because there's so much strength in the data that we can use. So we constantly improve what's going on behind the scenes, but I have not had to send out many emails about changes in the system. So for a couple of years, it looks pretty similar, but the amount of work that I've done on the back end is enormous, a huge amount. So we're changing the tables, we're changing how workflows are existing, we're changing how the user interface is presented, but the councils looks pretty much the same to them. There's some minor changes about material types and receptacle types, but really they've got a really familiar website they can log on to, do it in 5 minutes and forget about it. They know it's already done. So that's me. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take a few. Yes?
Is the waste levy funding the increasing costs of doing the CRC collection and disposal and recycling of any elements that can be recycled? And the other part of the question is, are you making sure that everything that is being recycled actually does get recycled within Australia or elsewhere? Like, can it not be lost or leaked into, I guess, landfill?
Yes, so it is waste levy funded, the program, and that does accommodate any changes in those material prices, which are negotiated with the waste contractor. The end point for the products, we really are, it's not about getting the cheapest possible outcome. For us, the emphasis really is, above that, is about the best possible outcome for the technology available for any disposal of any products. So yes, in answer to your question, we're really looking for local endpoints and recycled as much as possible. So it's all about waste diversion, of course, and we're really looking, if it costs a bit more, on balance, within reason, we're really after getting a better outcome. So we really interrogate that in our contracts, and we regularly have external audits for end of life. Yeah.
So do you think that you can gear it towards the circular economy then? Because I guess it's against the waste levy in that it's free to drop off. And I know we're doing that to make it easier, to incentivize people to source separate, bring it to a collection site or a trailer if there's one around, and dispose of it that way rather than the easier way, which is chuck it into a bin, which could cause fires in landfill or a MRF if they stick it in the wrong bin, or recycle it. So I just want to know, like, with the circular economy, we're trying to get people to value their waste, maybe not buy disposable batteries, maybe buy rechargeable batteries, for an example. How does this system not work against that? If you know what I mean. I mean, you can work for it in that your materials that you're recycling can go towards making other things that recirculate. But as a consumer, if I can just dispose this stuff for free, there's no education there on the opportunities for buying something better and different. So I don't have to keep coming back to the CRC with the same disposable batteries, for example.
Yep.
I should be buying rechargeables and provide that information back to people. I think that would be ways to support the circular economy more than this program.
Yeah, definitely. As part of that, product stewardship is a huge thing. So we're investing significant time dealing with the product stewardship situation and making sure we're supporting it as much as possible to get the message out there that rather than buying the disposable products, it is better to try and buy the reusable products. Now, I can only talk within my remit, of course, so we're within the team trying to make sure that these things are effectively managed once they come to us. So there are other parts of the EPA that certainly establish those relationships and work on those education programs. Yeah?
We're running a bit out of time, a bit over, so sorry, you'll have to get Zach over lunch on that one, I'm afraid.
No worries. Happy to
thanks
chat.
very much, Zach.